We continue now at the top of Daf Lamed Gimel Lamed Aleph and Meseches Beitzah. This is Beitzah Daf 33a. The Gemara here continues the statement of Rav Yehuda. Rav Yehuda says, V'chein beyasa, the same thing is true when it comes to eggs. V'chein kideira, the same is true by a pot. V'chein puria, the same is true by a bed. V'chein chavisa, and the same is true by barrels. And Rashi over here explains, V'chein beyasa, beitzim gasos hanesunos al pi kli cholol kein tripod. Let's say you have eggs, large eggs, and you're putting them on top of an open kli like a tripod. You're going to fry the eggs. You're putting it on a grill. Don't first set up the kli and then put it on top of it. What you should do is hold it, and put the eggs on top of, let's say, the grill. And only after that, put the kli onto the gecholim, onto the coals. The point is, you shouldn't build it in the normal fashion of building. That's the whole point of Rabbi Yehuda. When you're constructing something on Yontif, do it in the abnormal fashion. So again, over here, you start at the top and you work your way down to the bottom to the coals. V'chein keder, the same by a pot. Shemoshivan al beis chavios. Let's say you're taking a pot and you're putting it on top of two barrels. Lo yakifena tchila v'yachakach yoshev hakeder aleim. Don't first set up the barrels and then put the pot on top of them. Elohel yona yisla ba'avir. Rather, again, take the upper part and hang it in the air. V'yochzena biyado, holding it in your hand. V'yasadra chavios tachteh asavim. And then you put the barrels underneath. You arrange them underneath. And Rashi continues, v'chein puri, and also by a bed. Mitos hasaram sheparkin osanu machzir. And we're talking about the fancy beds. They could take them apart and put them together. Lo yizgof hakarayim tchilo. Don't first set up the legs. Lo se swaruchos bikirayim. Then you put the frame in the legs. V'yachagach yifros ha'or lamatz. And then they spread the leather, the hide, in order to lay upon shashoch and olive, which he's going to lie on. Don't do it that way again, building from the bottom up. First you spread out the leather and the hide, you let people hold it in their hands. Then you bring the aruchos, again like the frame, you tie it up. You tie the straps of leather to them. And then you stand up the legs. And you put the aruchos into them. Again, you build from the top down. And then also true by barrels. Let's say you're arranging barrels in a storehouse. You're putting one on top of two. Again, you should hold the upper one in the air and slide the lower ones underneath. Don't build it in the normal fashion. And the Gemara continues, it said in the Mishnah, you shouldn't hold up the pot with a piece of wood, and also a door. Gemara says, you think you're holding up the pot with a door? That doesn't even make any sense. Rather, what the Mishnah means is, don't hold up the door with a piece of wood. It's the same basic idea. It's continuing, just like you shouldn't support the pot with this piece of wood, so too you shouldn't support the door in this fashion. The Gemara continues at the two dots, Tanu Rabban, and the rabbis taught, you can't support a pot with a piece of wood, and similarly, you can't support a door in that fashion, because according to this opinion, wood should only be used for hasaka purposes, for burning purposes, not for other purposes on Yontif. For Rabbi Shimon Matir, Rabbi Shimon says it's okay, you can support it with a piece of wood, because again, Rabbi Shimon does not hold of muksa. You're also not allowed to lead an animal using a stick on Yontif. For Rabbi Lazar, Rabbi Shimon Matir, Rabbi Shimon says it's mutter. So the Gemara says, Leimer Rabbi Lazar, Rabbi Shimon, Kavur Svirle. Let's say this is the same idea, that Rabbi Lazar, Rabbi Shimon holds like his father, does not hold of muksa, so it's no problem using the makil, using the staff for this purpose. Again, the lesle muksa, he holds like his father that there's no concept of muksa. And so the Gemara says, Lo no behoa afilo Rabbi Shimon moda. In this case, when you're leading the animal with the staff, even Rabbi Shimon admits that it's a problem. Mishum de mirzi command to. When you guide the animal in this fashion, it looks like you're taking the animal to the marketplace, so it looks like you're doing something that's forbidden on Yontif. And the Gemara continues, Chizra. Chizra refers to a bamboo pole. Rashi over here says, Chizra anaf eitz shuchad. It's a branch that's sharp, coats like a thorn. V'roi l'sako b'tzli, and you can stick it into a piece of meat to roast. Kimin shfud, like a skewer. V'litzlosbo, you can use it to roast the meat. In other words, you're going to stick this into the meat and hold it over the fire. Are you allowed to do that on Yontif? So the Gemara says it's a machlokas amoraim. Rav Nachman aser, Rav Sheshes shari. Rav Nachman says it's aser, and Rav Sheshes says it's permitted. Rashi over here says Rav Nachman aser b'yomtiv. Rav Nachman says it's aser to do this on Yontif. Mishum de muksa ninu l'taltal. It's muksa to move this thing around. Shelo aso l'kli mibod yom. You didn't designate it as a kli from before Yontif, so therefore you can't use it as a kli. You can't use it as a skewer. And the Gemara continues, b'retiva kol yalma lo pligi da'aser. If it's moist, everybody agrees that it's aser. Rashi over here says, b'retiva sheinu roi l'taltal lo afilo hasaka. hasaka. That's not even fit to use for hasaka. You can't even use it as firewood because it's wet. The kuliyama lo pligi daser. Everybody agrees that's aser. You did not have in mind to use that at all on yontiv. Ki pligi biabesh. The machlokas is if it's dry, if in theory it can be used as firewood. Manda aser, the one who says it's forbidden, Amar Lach says to you, lo nitnu eitzim el hasaka. Wood is only designated for fire, for burning. Umanda shari, and the one who permits it, Amar Lach says to you, mali litzlos bo, mali litzlos bekachalto. What's the difference if you use it to roast with? In other words, you stick it in the meat. And what's the difference if you use it to roast, meaning turning it into a coal, throw it into the fire and turning it into a coal and burning it that way? It's the same basic purpose. And the Gemara continues, Ika diamri, some have a different version of this discussion. Be'abeshta kuliyam lo pligi deshari. If it's dry, everybody agrees it's permitted, because then once it's fit to be used lehesik, so it's fit to be used for this purpose as well. Ki pligi birativta, the machlokas is, can you use it if it's moist? Manda asar de lo chazi la'asaka, the one that says it's forbidden because you can't use it for fire, so you can't use it for this as well. Umanda shari, the one who says it's permitted, Amar Lach will say to you, hachazi lehesik gadol. It is fit to be used for a fire. You can throw it into a large fire, even if it's a little bit moist, it's not going to be a problem. And the Gemara says, V'hilchasa, the halacha is, Yabeshta shari, retivta aser. If it's dry, it's going to be permitted. If it's wet, if it's moist, it's going to be a problem. And the Gemara continues, Dorash Rava Darshans, Isha lo sichones ledir ha'etzim. A woman should not enter into the storehouse of wood, litol mehen ud, to take an ud. An ud is a firebrand. It's used to turn over other wood in the bonfire. V'ud shenishbar aser la'aseko b'yontav. And also, if you have a firebrand that breaks, so it's aser to use that as firewood, on yontav, lefisha masikin b'kelim, because you're allowed to use kelim for a fire. Vein masikin b'shivrei kelim. You can't use broken kelim for a fire. And Rashi over here explains, Dorash Rava de Rabbi Yehuda Svirle. The point over here is that Rav is following the opinion of Rabbi Yehuda, who holds of muksa. Ladir, dir eitzim, again, an area where you store wood. Ud eitz lasos, ud latano porgan balaz. Again, you're going to use it as a firebrand. That's what you're going to do with this piece of wood. V'tayim mishum de lo nitnu ela lahat lahesik. The only purpose of using the wood, you're only allowed to use it for fire. Elam ke nase kli mi ba'od yom, unless it was made as a kli from before yontiv. In this case, it wasn't designated as a kli from before yontiv, so it's going to be a problem. And again, v'ud shenishbar b'yontiv, if it broke on yontiv, you have an ud that was broken on yontiv, so then again, you're also not allowed to use it for hesek, for a fire, because ein masikim b'shivrei kelim, it wasn't designated for this purpose ahead of time. And so the Gemara says, L'meimra de Rava Rabbi Yehuda Svirle. Does this mean to say that Rava holds like Rabbi Yehuda? He seems to hold like Rabbi Yehuda. He holds of the concept of muksa. So the Islay muksa, again, Rabbi Yehuda holds of the concept of muksa. V'amar le Rava l'shame, but didn't Rava say to his servant, Tvi li baravza, should roast for me a duck, v'shadi me'el l'shunra, and throw the insides to the cat. So again, this was originally designated for human consumption, and now you're giving it to the cat for animals. That does not sound like the position of Rabbi Yehuda. And so the Gemara says, Hasam over there, since it's going to spoil the insides of this duck, so therefore you have das in it from yesterday, you already had in mind to give it to animals. Rashi over here says, again, throw the innards to the cat. According to Rabbi Yehuda, this would be aser. Because from before Yontiv, it was prepared to be eaten by people. V'lo leklav, not for dogs. That's what Rabbi Yehuda says. If it wasn't an avela from before Shabbos, you can't use it for the animals. And so the Gemara answers, Kevan de Misrachi im yanichem letzorech machar. If you're going to leave these for the next day, it's certainly going to go bad. It's going to go rancid. V'hayom lo hayatzarech lem, and today he doesn't need these things today. So may esmol daiti lavayu lashlichem lechasul. In other words, from before Yontav, you had in mind when it came to this duck, you had in mind that the innards were going to the cat. You knew you weren't going to use them for today, and you also, meaning for Yontav, and you knew also you're not going to be able to save them for another time. So therefore, this was the only use for this, and therefore it's not going to be a problem of muksa, even according to Rabbi Yehuda. The Gemara continues with the Mishnah. Rabbi Eliezer, Rabbi Eliezer says, Notel adam kisim mishalafan. If a person can take a piece of wood like as a toothpick from in front of him, lachsos boshinav, to pick his teeth, or megabev min hachatzer, he can also collect these pieces of wood and straw from the chatzer, umadlik, and light a fire with it. Shekol masha bechatzer muchanu, because everything that's in a chatzer, in a courtyard, is muchan, is considered prepared on Yontif. The Chachamim say megabev mishalafanav umadlik. He can only collect that which is is in front of him to light the fire. Rashi will explain this. Ein motziin es ha'or lo min ha'etzim v'lo min ha'avonim v'lo min ha'afor v'lo min ha'ra'afim v'lo min ha'mayim. You can't create fire from new, meaning to create a new fire by, let's say, rubbing two pieces of wood together, or stones, or you're going to use dirt for this purpose, or ra'afim is tiles, or you use water. Rashi will explain you can use water as well to create fire. Point is, you're not allowed to create fire on Yontiv. Ve'in melavnen es ha'ra'afim litzlos behen. You're also not allowed to heat up the tiles. You make them white hot. That's melavnen. You're not allowed to do that in order to roast with them. Rashi over here says, no del adam kisa mishalafanav mimasha lafanav bebayis. That means lafanav means that it's in your house. It's right in front of you. Lachsas boshinav litol basar achotzes ben shinav, again to use it as a toothpick. Umishalafanav lav dafka. We don't only mean lafanav. To Rebbe Lazar af min achotzer nami. Rebbe Lazar is saying you can collect it from anywhere, even from the courtyard. To come call masha bechotzer muchanu, because he says anything in the chotzer is considered muchan. The point over here in the Reisha, the beginning of the Mishnah, is to say you're allowed to move around wood, even not for burning a fire. You can collect this wood for other purposes. The iflog rabbanon bucket l'kamon bebraisa. That's going to be machlokas later in the Braisa, the Gemara that's going to be brought in the Gemara. V'hadanakar mishalafanav mishum rabbanon depligi the afilu mishalafanav lahadlik ein lahadlik in lachsoslo. The reason why it says it's lafanav over here is because the rabbanon argue. They say even if you're taking it from what's right in front of you, it's only okay to do it lahadlik, not lachzos. In other words, the point over here is there's two separate discussions here. Number one, are you allowed to take from anywhere in the chatzar or only mishalafanav? And number two, even the part which you're allowed to take, is it only for hesek or can you use it for other purposes? Again, like a toothpick, etc. Megavev kasam and daken v'kashim in a chatzar madlik behen. Again, you can collect from the chatzar. According to the first opinion, you can collect it from anywhere, even from the chatzar, and light the fire. V'chachamim omer megavev mishalafanav u'madlik avalom min ha'chatzar. Aval min ha'chatzar lo. The chacham are saying you're not allowed to collect from the chatzar, only from that which is right in front of him, right in the house. Hoil v'daken hein v'torach l'koshan me'esmol. Since they're very small, it's difficult to do it. So me'esmol lav l'hachikaimi. So it wasn't originally intended from yesterday for this purpose. Udeka'amrin notel kisam lachzos shinav, and that which you said that you're allowed to take a toothpick. So anon islan da'afmi shalafanav lo yitol. That you can't even do if it's right in front of you. Ela lahadlik, even that is only okay if it's right in front of you. You can only do it to make a fire. To lo nitnu ela lahasaka. It's only for the purpose again of burning a fire of vitarti pligi. Again, the point over here is there's a machlokas on two fronts over here. There's one machlokas: can you use wood for anything other than hasaka? And the other issue is, can you collect the wood from anywhere in the chutzner, or is it only if it's mishalafanav? Rashi continues, vein motzian es or mishum demolid. Again, this is a problem of molid. Creating fire from new is going to be a problem. You can't do it in any fashion. Min hamayim, creating fire from water. So Rashi explains, nosnim mayim bechlei zechuches levana. What you would do is you would put the water into a clear glass container vessel. V'nosno bechama keshahashemesh cham ma'od. Then you would put that in the sun when it was very hot. V'hazechuches motzia shal heves, and the glass would create a flame. Umevian naoris umagiyim bezechuches v'boeres. Then you would bring material, touch it to the glass, and that would create the fire. Mina offer from the dirt, karka kasha keshechofer mosa motzia, or hard earth. When you dig into it, it can create a fire. Ken gargishta shalanu mimakom achbore shala. Again, like this gargishta, this certain kind of earth, it can create a fire. Often, like we said, was tablets. And melavnin bor, you can't heat them up white hot in order to roast. Of a Gemara mefarish taima, the Gemara is going to explain the reason. And the Gemara says, Amar Rav Yehuda says, and we'll continue with this discussion in the next video on Daf Lamed Gimel Amud Beis.